All right, here we go. It's the Nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. They will get you set up on delivery. You can go to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up and get yourself 15% off. T-Win, don't start with me already. All right? T-Win, don't start with me already. We haven't talked a lot of football, like direct football tonight. So we had Anthony DeFino, the deputy AD for John Cunningham, that handles game day experience on the BCJ podcast tonight. We talked a lot of exciting stuff about the future of Bearcat Journal. We talked about Reagan Yoakum.
There was a lot, man.
Who's added to the staff. We talked about Jeff Howell, who I think Jeff and Dave, I think that Sunday show is maybe going to be the best thing we do this season.
Until we have Ryan Royer on Monday nights.
I'm so excited for this football season. Like, to add Reagan doing TikTok and Instagram and short form video that we're bad at. We can't do anything short form.
Well, and we're going to try to not make this incredibly long, but we know that there were a lot of people live on the show tonight, and we thought that we'd continue doing the live version of the Nightcap. So I kind of made the executive decision, since Chad was available to do it. Let's just do this now. As you all were on the BCJ pod. So here we are.
I'm sleep deprived.
That could play in our favor.
I've been going for so we started early this morning at Higher Ground, did practice. I am now the host of the Tri-State Football Friday night pregame show on ESPN 1530 and Fox Sports 1360. I had to go in and record some stuff for that today. I went straight from there to the locker room walkthrough that we had today. I came home, prepared for the podcast with Dave and Anthony, and now I'm here live on the Nightcap. I need to be in bed like an hour and a half ago, Aaron.
Well, then let's get talking football, man.
You're in the driver's seat. You asked me questions. You've read the recap that I put up today.
Sure. I think you're doing the same thing I'm doing. So just retweet my two links.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you're doing the exact same thing I'm doing.
Yes. Does Reagan know where Collier's going? Poor Reagan. She has no clue what she's getting into with this crew, does she?
If she did her homework, as I expect that she probably has, she probably has an idea at this point already.
Yeah, you're right. She's like, I said, do you mind if we announce your addition to the Bearcat Journal team? And she said, as long as you're nice. And I said, I'm always nice unless you have done your homework on my Twitter feed. And then I'm always nice unless you act like a dumbass in my mentions. And then sometimes I'm not as nice. Practice today. What do you got? Fire away.
Well, first off, you interviewed Trey Tucker.
We got Trey Tucker's thoughts on being Tyler Scott's best friend. And so here's the thing I think people need to know about Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott. Have you ever had that that guy that went to a different high school that was like your rival? Because these two raced against each other in track and field their entire high school career. They were the two fastest kids in Ohio. Like, they have a competitive nature. And I talk about this a lot with Josh Wiley and Malik Vann. Like, they competed against each other in high school football all through high school. Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott raced against each other like mano, because that's track and field, right? Like,
Right.
you compete every day that you're on the track. And when you're on the track with the other guy that you know, these two guys have both ran a 4.2940.
Which is absolutely insane.
It's insane. It's insane. So their competitive spirit against each other has turned into a brotherhood of best friends. They're best friends. That interview with Trey Tucker today was hilarious. Having him give his
Thoughts
reaction, like his thoughts on candles and his thoughts on the neck pillow and his thoughts on, like, when I get back to the room, Tyler Scott is always there in his robe and his neck pillow.
Is he as clean as we thought he is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes
come
sense.
On. Come on. If you're about terry robes and neck pillows and water features and candles, you can't be the messy guy, right?
Makes sense.
So that was great.
A lot of your notes were largely about receivers, not a ton on the defense, and not a ton on really anywhere else on the offense outside of course, the quarterback battle. So without getting into the receivers and the quarterbacks, what else was going on offense today?
I know this is crazy. I know this doesn't fit anything more than like what we talked about. If I had to bet, I still favor, like, who's going to take the first snap at Arkansas at running back. I think there's a good chance it's Ryan Montgomery, just in respect to how much he's already provided to the program. But I think the guy that has proved himself more than anyone in this camp is Miles Montgomery. We've been talking about Miles Montgomery since the spring, right? Like,
sure.
This guy is a guy that is charging hard into this picture.
Well, and we talked about at the scrimmage, he may have had
the best play.
The best play of the entire day.
Yeah. He looked like Jerome Ford when he got outside and ran straight. Remember, they will blow a lot of things dead just on contact.
Yeah.
There was no contact on that 35-yard run.
Crazy.
He ran right past everybody.
Well, and I guess one of the things that I keep telling you when we've had these conversations off air is that, you know, as you look at Corey Kiner, who came in after spring game was already over, he's been
coming with some injuries,
coming back off an injury. But I mean, even if you have a bell cow and whoever you decide to go with, whether it's Ryan Montgomery, whether it's Miles Montgomery, whether it's Corey Kiner, whoever it ends up being,
Charles McClellan also
got a
decent amount of first team reps.
Chuck's looked great through camp. Yeah. That all said, there's still going to be room for touches in this offense, especially
for a lot of guys. Yeah.
If you go back to Dez's early career and you look at the way that Luke, and we'll see what Gino decides to do, but the way that Luke traditionally as head coach has dealt with a quarterback early on in a career is to go run heavy. And as you're going run heavy, even if you have a bell cow, guys getting 20, 25 touches a game, there's still going to be room for getting to 40 potentially.
I don't think they have a Mike Warren in this room yet, where in that second season, they felt like, look, we're just going to give the ball to Mike Warren 25 times a game, and he's going to beat you up and eventually wear you down and get those. What did it come down to a lot with Mike Warren? Those critical 2 or 3 yards at the end of a game. Mm-hmm. Like, that was the thing about Mike Warren that was different from a lot of backs, right? Like, you could count on Mike Warren wearing a defense out to the point that when you got to crunch time, when you got to 4th and 3 with, 2 minutes left on the clock, Mike Warren's going to get you that 3. Do we know that there's that guy yet? No. The guy I think that has been the best back has been Miles Montgomery through camp. And he backed that up in the scrimmage on Saturday, especially with that touchdown run. But does that mean Corey Kiner's not going to, at some point in the next couple weeks, start to find his rhythm, find his groove? Remember, like 10 days ago when we were like, man, Noah Potter's not really flashing in his first 5 or 6 practices.
And I didn't notice a whole lot on defense, so I was going to ask you if because he was. It sounded like, again, in the scrimmage, he was starting to make some plays. And now all of a sudden, he's starting to get the defense.
Factor. Right. Now that he's had 10, 12 practices under his belt, all of a sudden, oh, hey, there's Noah Potter. Write that down.
You can't miss him. 6'5", 250. Jesus.
But you can miss him if they're not making any plays.
That's fair.
You can. Like that, I think the way that we do things in terms of reporting on camp is important because we're not overhyping or underhyping anything. What we're reporting on is who flashes, who is in that specific day, every day, who is making plays.
So as we talk about Noah Potter, and if he was a guy that was flashing today, what did he do?
Today I didn't have him down on my chart a lot. So that's again 2 days ago he was down there for a sack and made a couple, like today I didn't have him flash a lot. I had Ivan Pace for a sack. I had Jawan Briggs for a sack.
How'd Dante do today?
You can't move him.
So it's much of the same, which
you can't move him.
Yeah.
Like I've watched so many people. Actually, I want to get to one guy we haven't talked about a ton that I think is going to be a guy through 2022 we talk about a lot. That's okay. Gavin Gerhardt.
Yep, not on your list today, at least on the report. So
well, they gave him a little bit of a dial back day today. You know why?
Because he played 90 snaps in the scrimmage.
Because he's taking essentially every other snap at starting left guard and every snap as the second team center.
He double IV'd after the scrimmage.
Right. We're not talking enough about Gavin Gerhardt because I think we're at the point now where we have to have a very real conversation that Gavin Gerhardt is the starting left guard at Arkansas.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I think you have put guys in place, coaches in place, in Mike Cummings and Gino Guidugli, and all the way up to Luke Fickell, Brady Collins included in some of that they're going to put the 5 best dudes out there that are going to give you their everything. And that's all you want from your offensive line.
And the Gavin Gerhardt situation is a little different because Gavin Gerhardt earned his respect because last year they didn't have a backup center.
He took on a role that he was unfamiliar with.
And terrible at.
Initially, sure.
Let's rewind. When he started being the backup center, it was a train wreck. And guess what he did? He spent every day working his ass off, getting better in case his number was called. And Jake Renfro, because of the hip that he needed surgery on, was going to be out last year. And what did that result in? We got to the spring. Renfro had the hip surgery. Gavin Gerhardt took every snap as the first team center at camp in spring ball.
Okay.
And then they get to camp this year. And I think there was a realization that it's not fair to pigeonhole this kid as Jake Renfro's backup. He was a guard before they forced him, spoon-fed him, shoveled it down his throat that you are our backup center. And then you get to camp this year and you say, you know what? We're comfortable that he's good enough to be the backup center. But you know what? He's also one of our best options at guard. And the kid has attacked that reality and played 90 snaps, like you talked about. 90 snaps in the scrimmage.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
As partial starting left guard, partial number 2 center that is the only number 2 center on the roster right now.
So you talk left guard. Let's go to the other side of the center, and let's talk right guard and right tackle. Who was out there today?
Again, we've seen one day where Dylan O'Quinn was at right tackle and Joe Huber was at right guard. Every other day, every other snap with the first team has been Joe Huber at right tackle and Dylan O'Quinn at right guard. You know, I had a little birdie tell me today, Aaron.
I love little birdies.
Through silence comes violence. I think you're going to be able to buy those at 513 shirts here soon, benefiting NIL Joe Huber.
Good.
I think it's coming. I think those talks are happening.
I would love to I just hope that his dad's name was Jim, right?
Yeah.
I hope that there's just a proud dad moment that just lives inside him. But just to have the shirt sold and like walking around at games, and you're going to see a handful of these shirts, right?
Through silence comes violence.
I think that would be fantastic, and I hope that that moment lives with him forever.
Oh, he's excited. He's definitely excited about the glow up of Joe Huber this offseason because it's been fantastic. Take it and run with it. Joe Huber, Miles Montgomery, Gavin Gerhardt.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron, Aaron.
That's what they say.
When given the chance, earn that shit. Chris Scott is another one. Like everybody, Jaden Thompson and Nick Mardner those are going to be the boundary guys, right?
Yeah. All three of them will be the boundary guys, yes.
Yeah. Chris Scott said, me too. I'm in. Tag me in. Brian Threats, Armorion Smith. Guess who's charging at safety the last couple of days of camp?
Dingle?
Ethan Wright.
Oh.
A little.
I know. You mentioned
Ethan Wright with a couple second team reps today.
You mentioned what? Monday was it that he was going to be a stud?
Yeah. Iron sharpens iron. And that's why we talked about all offseason, this camp was going to be so fun. Well, because there were so many spots that guys could. Dante Corleone.
Yeah.
Like, we're at 4, 5, 6 guys now that are taking advantage of their opportunity. That's what Luke Fickell's program is. If I told you a cornerback transfer from Howard that went to Mount Healthy was going to come in this program and be a second-round pick, you'd have told me I was a fucking idiot.
I think he might have told you at that point that I'm going to be a second.
No, he would not have.
He believed he was going to be a second round.
Scared the shit out of me.
Making the predator noises, right?
Right. But that's what this program is about. There's guys charging at the end of camp. The final scrimmage is on Sunday. There are guys that are saying, you know what? I deserve to be on the field. And it's not all the guys that we were talking about 2-3 weeks ago when camp started. There are guys that came from off the radar and earned this conversation. And that's iron sharpens iron.
And I think that's a nutshell of what we kind of were looking for in this camp compared to last year's camp.
Right. We knew there was no surprises at last year's camp.
Not really.
We knew it was going to happen. We essentially knew it was like every starter.
Well,
the only surprise really was like
Renfro getting injured.
Well, Renfro getting injured, but he didn't miss any time. When Vinny got hurt, Metz moving to right guard from tackle was I don't want to say a surprise.
I just mean Gavin Gerhardt snapping the ball. That was a surprise.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was.
Gavin will tell you it was bad. I joked about it with Gavin today after practice. Bro, where you've gotten to from where you were, he was like, "Oh, I hated that last year that they made me do. Like that was what I had to do to help the team. I hated it because I was bad at it. You know what you hate? Things you're bad at.
Sure. Especially when you're elite at this game of football,
right?
So,
let's get out of here. Or do you want to just keep going? We're at 50. Let's keep going. Whatever. I got to go to bed at like 11:30. We got like 30 more minutes.
It wasn't a ton else I wanted to go. I was just going to ask because I know you talked about Co. So I don't necessarily really want to. I haven't seen any Gunner talk.
There's Gunner talk today with Trey in the video.
Okay, fantastic.
Like I asked him about look, we are the number one punt gunner podcast in the country.
That's absolutely wild.
He said, me and Tyler want to be. He gave a couple great anecdotes about their competition getting to the punt returner. The two of them compete every time to see who's the one that gets there first.
That's not a surprise at all when you're talking.
No, they compete in everything. We just talked about with those two.
But the fact that it carries over to even special teams, again, that's just no surprise.
To be punt gunners,
it also makes perfect sense as to why they both squat the same exact amount.
Right.
Like, I mean, they're literally.
They both run 4.29s. Trey talked about Tyler put up a 4.29 when he got here, and Trey said, "I had to look at that wall every day and see Tyler with a 4.29." And when I ran my 40. All I could hear at the end of it was Sauce running around screaming, 4.29, 4.2. And I was like, all right, now my name is going to be next to Tyler's name.
Yeah.
As the 4.29 guys.
I know we talked on offense, obviously not wanting to get too deep in quarterback or wide receiver still. But tight end, we haven't talked. I feel like we haven't talked much tight as much as the position has been ballyhooed because you have two dudes that you obviously know what you have in a Josh Wiley and a Lenny Taylor. But we've talked about Gino talked day one. I mean, I went back and did the time codes for day one with Gino a couple days ago. And even going back then, he talked about running some 12 personnel. So have we seen more of that 12 personnel, even some flirting with 13 personnel over the course of the last couple of days? Or
a lot of 12. The funny thing is the 12 personnel has made this camp hard to cover.
Reason being?
Because when they go 12 personnel, we've seen a different alignment from the defense, which typically with the ones has been Jaheim Thomas playing stand-up edge and Ivan Pace coming on the field as the weak side linebacker.
Okay.
The question is, how much are they going to use that formation compared to how much is it a reaction to the offense playing 12 personnel? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to see that a lot, or is it just every day they're defending Josh and Lenny on the field? And the best way to defend Josh and Lenny on the field is potentially to have Jaheim as a fourth down lineman and Ivan as the weak side linebacker. Like, I think we see a lot of that. We'll get into this as we get into game week, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's something we potentially see a lot of against Arkansas because they want to run the ball. Like, they have a dual threat quarterback that likes to run over people. I really like KJ Jefferson. He's not a guy that's going to like destroy you with his arm.
I think he was like number 24, I want to say, in ESPN's top 100. And Arkansas,
a lot of that is because he's going to run you over.
Arkansas had threat. They had 3 of the top 66 guys. So I mean, they definitely have some studs, but
Yeah, one of them is named Bumper Pool.
which is fantastic football name. It's
Right.
just ridiculously fantastic.
Yeah.
As we talk about the 12 personnel, though, are they running it strictly out of like the power where you have?
No.
Are they running tight end, like two tight ends on one side? Are they running one
A
tight
little bit.
end out?
People will stab me
If you're
in
giving
that
out
building if I'm
too
giving
much on that,
if I'm giving out too much information there.
fair enough.
So I understand your question, but
Yeah,
they're using 12 personnel in a lot of different ways. And you can do that
okay.
when you have Josh and Lenny, because what can both of them do? They can
Everything.
both line up in line and block. They can both split out wide and catch passes. They can punish you in a lot of different ways. And so
huge.
far, we've seen, they're both giant humans. We've seen them do that in a lot of different ways. So
Okay.
I had a legitimate sit down with Josh. So I mentioned, I don't know if here or in the other show, I'm hosting on Friday nights, tristatefootball.com, which is run by my good friends, Dan Claston and Greg Shoemaker. I'm hosting their pregame show for high school football. And one of the features we're doing on that pregame show every week is a hometown heroes segment with a Bearcat that is from Cincinnati. So my first interview today was with Josh Wiley. Okay. And Josh was like, I don't want to go on video. And I was like, well, this is a radio interview, so we don't have to do the video. And he was like, okay, so, how are we going to do this? And I was like, well, we'll just do a sit down, thinking we'll go over to the benches in the awning and do like a little sit down where I talk to him. And he was like, well, we're just going to sit down right here. And we were at like the 30-yard line on the practice field.
Tell me you just sat down on the 30-yard
line. We just sat down on the 30-yard line at the practice field.
Unbelievable.
And did the interview. And then after the interview, he was like, you need me to help you up? You're kind of old. And I got up on my own. He's like, oh, you're still kind of spry. I'm like, I'm 44, dude. I'm
a man.
I'm 40. I'm not 70 years old. I can get up from sitting on the ground still, usually, most of the time. Not always, but most of the time.
I feel like things have been a little quiet on the Javon Hicks and Arquan Bush. I know they're obviously leaders of the defense, but I feel like it's been a relatively quiet camp for both of them. I know Hicks maybe has been a little bit more. He definitely had some scrimmage highlight stuff that people were talking about. But I don't feel like Bush has a lot being said one way or the other.
I don't think the defense, or I don't think the offense is going at them much.
They're picking on Jaquan.
They're trying to pick on Jaquan and JQ, and they're trying to pick on
whoever's running the
Brian
other
Threats and Jack Dingle, and they're trying to pick on whoever's in the slot, Taj Ward or Sammy Anderson or Malik Rainey has kind of reintroduced himself over the past couple days and made some plays. So I think that's kind of where that comes from. Like, if you're the offense and you're the quarterback, you're not going at the guys you know can beat you, right? You're trying to win the quarterback job. There's no way either of them are lining up and going, we're going to throw this at Arquan. Like, we're going at Arquan today.
Well, then let me ask you this. Do you think that a couple of days ago, I think it sounded like Sammy was the leading guy at the
it's still like him and Taj. I think the hard part is for the staff, Taj has played the most football, right? Like, Taj has been a guy that's been substituted in at the nickel. He's been substituted in at safety. They have that. What do we always talk about, Aaron? It's about trust with the coaching staff, right? Like, you have to earn that trust. And Taj has, in a lot of ways, earned that trust. Ryan Montgomery has earned that trust as a running back. So Taj has predominantly been taking the most snaps at nickel with the ones. But Sammy has worked in there, and he's been good when he worked in there. The question now becomes, when are you ready to take that gamble and flip that switch?
Sure.
I think Sammy's had a good camp so far. I know the best thing I can say about Sammy is I've not written down a lot of stuff in my notes about so-and-so made a play on Sammy.
Okay.
Which is, what you
a
want.
good thing. Right.
Yeah.
Which I guess the last real thing I want to talk about with camp is you mentioned Ethan Wright flying up. What's he doing to kind of stand out? I mean, because I guess you think about it, as a guy who's been a running back in this system, he knows what the offense. He's almost got a cheat code because he knows some of the offensive playbook.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
That said, you also have an opportunity because you've been in offense, in a collegiate offense at that, whether it's with Cincinnati or whoever. You're able on defense, as playing defense, you're able to see the offense differently.
So what makes him good at running back makes him good at safety?
Because he can always find the holes.
He finds the holes. He attacks. He's aggressive. At the beginning of camp, he got his hands on a lot of balls and dropped them. Like he was in the right spot and just, and I joked with him like, oh, there's those running back hands. The past couple days, he's made those plays. Like he's made the interception. He's made the right play where it's like, oh, you're getting your DB legs under you now. Like all of a sudden, like you look like safety, Ethan Wright. And he's like, yeah, like I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And I talked about it Monday when we talked about the safety position in the mailbag. When people were like, what's the one position that's like
depth
you feel better about than you did at the start of camp? In large part because of Ethan Wright and also our Morion Smith. I felt good about safety because of Javon Hicks, Jacob Dingle,
felt good at the top.
Brian Threats, right? All of a sudden, you're seeing our Morion Smith making plays. You're seeing Ethan Wright making plays. Isaiah Cox has made some plays. And now you're looking at a safety room instead of being 3 deep is 6 deep. Will Adams, a walk-on who has made a name for himself, and you're probably going to see on a lot of special teams. There's 5, 6, 7 guys at safety now that you're starting to feel like if their number is called, those guys, I'm not going to be like, look, you know how it is as a football fan. When there's an injury and you're not sure what's behind that curtain, you get very concerned. Sure. We didn't know that like when Wig got injured, and it had to be like really the only option was Javon Hicks. Javon Hicks stepped up and had an all-conference type of year. But the reality was, if that didn't happen with Javon, there was nobody behind him.
Couldn't you say the same thing for when Brian Cook had to go into the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so I guess that's the thing about a Luke Fickell team is they don't rebuild, they reload, literally.
I will also say this is a credit to Colin Hitchler because he has done. We give Mike Brown a ton of credit
for the
wide receiver room, having a complete transformation, and now there's 5, 6, 7 wide receivers that we feel like could make an impact. I think Colin Hitchler deserves that same type of love at safety because that safety room has gone from, boy, we better hope these top 2 guys stay healthy to we really like what we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
deep.
Yeah. Cincinnati's not supposed to be 5, 6, 7 deep at any position.
Well, especially since we're only recruiting 3 stars. I mean,
right.
They're 3 stars.
Exactly. That's the national narrative. That's where things are supposed to be. But we watch in practice these guys. If they were bad, remember, like when we joked around about like Mamba Island with Kobe as he was like shutting down the boundary wide receiver, there was always the caveat, I don't know how good this wide receiver room is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that, like, yeah, he's shutting down what they have in this room, but I think this room might be bad, or at least not good.
And then it was good.
And then it was good.
Really good.
Because they hired Mike Brown, and Mike Brown made the necessary changes. They hired Colin Hitchler. Colin Hitchler is now developing a safety room that's really good. And guess what? They might have their best safety prospect in the Luke Fickell era coming in next year with Braden Moore. And he's going to enter himself into that mix.
Yeah.
Like Pat Body, a guy with like,
still haven't even found a way to talk about him yet.
Right. Like that room is a completely different room than it was 2 years ago.
Let's just say they will be fine.
They'll be fine. And at corner, they'll be fine.
They will be fine. I don't really have any other camp questions for you. And I know I said during the podcast, maybe we talk some about the CFP stuff, but
can we talk about this?
Sure.
This was so fun today.
I know you mentioned
so fun today.
You did mention it with Dave.
There was a layer of this I didn't mention with Dave too.
Okay.
So the guys that run Big 12 Radio, they're on ESPNU, Sirius XM. I guess I don't know the exact window, but I think it's like 8 to 10 every day. So they hit me up and they were like, hey, can you come on? And initially, practice was supposed to start at the normal time today. They pushed it back about 45 minutes, I think, just to give the guys a little bit of time to like sleep in for a little bit. The horn wasn't going off at 6 in their room. It was going off at 6:45. And that's an important thing to do at camp. Like, surprise your guys with a little bit of extra sleep.
Yeah.
So I got there and I was supposed to start the interview at 9:15. We were told practice was going to start at 9:40 or 9:30. So I pull in to higher ground into my parking spot to go to camp. And right as soon as I pulled in, they called to start the interview. So I start talking to the two guys that are hosting the show. And I get a tap on my window. It's Pike, who has come out for practice that day.
Okay.
And I have to tell these guys, like, give me a second. Former Cincinnati quarterbacking legend, Tony Pike, is tapping at my window. So I roll the window, like I push the button for the window down, and Pike is like, let's go, get out of the car. And I'm like, I'm on Big 12 Radio on ESPNU and Sirius XM. And, Tony's great at like playing up. And he's like, oh, they called you? And I'm like, yeah, you want to jump in and do the interview with me? So Tony sits on the front of my car waiting for me to get done with this interview so we can walk into practice together. And I do a couple minutes of the interview and I look in the rearview mirror and there's Luke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey. And I'm sure that was great radio, right?
Sure.
Me going, hey. And they're like, what is happening? I'm like, come here. And Luke walks up to the window and he's like, what the hell do you want? Right? Like, and
as
I'm
Luke
like,
does.
As Luke does, well, it's me. Of course he's going to like, what do you want? Why are you calling me to your car window at 9:30 on we're getting ready to start practice. And I'm like, well, I'm on with Luke has done this show multiple times. So like, he knows the guys that are hosting the show. I'm like, I'm on Big 12 Radio on ESPNU Radio. He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here talking to them. He's like, what did they ask you? And I was like, they asked me, what's the secret to your success? And I told him Brady, not you. I told him it was Brady. And he was like, yeah, that's right. It's Brady. Brady's, and he just walked away. And the ESPNU guys are like, they're in the middle of trying to ask me serious questions. And I'm filibustering them with like Tony Pike and Luke Fickle cameos.
Because why not?
And eventually I'm like, I'm sorry, yeah. Like, you guys are trying to be serious. And I'm out here at Camp Higher Ground, like screwing around.
Not good at that.
And they were like, what is Camp Higher Ground? And I started to explain it to them. And I'm like, it's awesome. Like, it's in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. We come out here every day. It's all about football. They have this dining room that we eat in every day after practice. It's amazing. They're like, we're coming next year. We're coming to do a couple shows at Camp Higher Ground.
You should.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's absolutely the right thing to do. It was really funny. Like, it was like, it's one of the most unique, I think, from my perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people don't agree with that, with the whole stick to sports thing. From my perspective, it's one of the best interviews I've done, because I kind of almost commandeered the radio show and did my own radio show from the front seat of my car at Camp Higher Ground. And I'm guessing when they got off the air, they were like, what the hell just happened?
They had no idea.
And I'm also like, that's just Higher Ground. That's how this place works. Like, It happens that way at lunch. Like, we're just sitting there at lunch, and there's like John Cunningham comes and sits down, or Mike Tressel comes over and is like, hey guys, what's going on? Or Brady Collins, gets his cottage cheese and dumps some applesauce on it. Like, that's Higher Ground. That's how this works out here.
Yeah.
And it's outstanding. It was a really fun interview to do with the Big 12 radio guys. I don't know if there's a podcast or a way to like get it, but if you can listen to it, I think it was hilarious.
Also, if you can find it, let us know so we can share it with people who
it was funny. It was funny. It was good stuff.
That said, we've gone 42 minutes.
There's still 60 people here.
Look, I know, and I know you have a long day tomorrow, and I know that if we go any longer, the people will riot.
What people?
The people who listen to these nightcaps, they're going to be mad that we went for 8 times the length that they've requested.
Like, when we have a bunch of stuff to talk about, let's just talk about it.
Well, and I think we did. I don't know.
We didn't talk about Luther yet.
Not here, but I'm not touching that. I'm not touching.
I do want to I do want to say, we are thinking of Isaiah Collier, his family, the people around him. They are going through a really rough time right now. His best friend died in a tragic accident on a lake in Georgia over the weekend. And I don't even know how to like address it or whatever. What I would say is like, just give that family some time. Space. Because they're going through a lot right now. I know he's had a funeral recently that he had to deal with, and then now his best friend is gone. And I don't even know how to like. I've been through that as a kid. It sucks. It's fucking awful. And give the kids some space. That would be just my best advice right now for what's going on with Isaiah and his recruitment. They are not right now. There is nothing about his, like, where he's going to college that matters. They've been through hell and back. And just, I know everybody wants to know. I get it. Like, he's potentially the number 1 recruit in the country. And Cincinnati is as involved as anybody in his recruitment. I get the constant demand for wanting to know, like, where they're at and what's happening. But just understand that's not where they're at right now. Give them some space.
On a lighter note, Paul, if you missed the first 12 minutes, this will be available here shortly when we wrap up. And you can go back and re-listen to any of that here on the YouTube or on the Twitch channel, whichever one you're listening to. And for Joe, I'll have timestamps hopefully tomorrow for the podcast from tonight. But we covered Luther Richardson and what happened with his entering of the transfer portal extensively on the BCJ podcast. So
yeah, all the content is out there. Aaron is timestamping it for you to find.
And I have been working on timestamping the nightcaps as well, going back to August 1st. So I'm a little behind. Once I get caught up, it should be on a daily thing. But we are.
And you and I are going to have a meeting with Reagan, and we're going to employ Reagan
to getting the clips. Yeah, so that should be a lot of things that we want to get done. That
we're on TikTok now. Bearcat Journal. Go to TikTok.
I searched for
Bearcat
it.
Journal.
I searched for it, couldn't find it. So we'll see if we can't drop a link.
God damn it.
We'll see if we can't drop a link for that on Twitter tomorrow. So outside of that, though, I think that's I
got to go to bed.
Wrap this up.
Yeah.
So thanks for all you knuckleheads who came over here from the other show. We do appreciate it. Since we had so many people, we thought we'd do this live as kind of a special thing. Since we did not talk football.
We didn't talk any football
on the BCJ podcast. Apologies for those of you who get very upset when these are long, but we wanted to make sure that we covered everything.
All right. He's Aaron Smith. I'm Chad Brendel. Galactic Fried Chicken is the sponsor. Bearcat Journal is the host. We'll see you tomorrow night.
See ya.